Dear Recruit Life Applications Officer here. Um, I got to talk about this real briefly. One of the, and it's two words, one of the things that has driven me all my life to be a Christian, and I think everything negative pours into it. Everything negative pours into these two boxes that pour into each other. Let me say again. Everything negative pours into these two boxes, okay, that pour into each other. And those two boxes that pour into each other are crime and violence. And crime doesn't start, and violence doesn't start when somebody pisses you off. It starts in the head of how you look at life and how you look at the things around you. Okay? I just got done watching these two videos on Netflix. One was called Crime, the Times Square Killer, and there was another one that goes with this, and it was talking about NYC in the 70s. And both of these videos about Times Square are like 40-some minutes long. You need to watch them. It makes you look at life today in a different light. But in both these videos, the same people are talking. One is addition to the other. The whole, 70s Times Square, NYC Times Square. Okay? Led to what we go through today, and even why many people today are so wroth against the idea of Christianity and so forth today. Listening to some of these people talk, most of them came to a touch in reality. But some of them, even though they stopped the sex working, they stopped, like a lot of these guys can't talk about it with smiles on their faces, even though they're not going to give credit to Jesus or anyone else for the fact that they don't do it anymore. They cannot talk about it with a smile on their face. There's a woman on this documentary, she's on both documentaries, blonde-haired middle-aged lady who was in the sex trafficking world, and she witnessed dead bodies. She witnessed finding out that her friend was killed by a serial killer, and her life was spared by a serial killer. Okay, a serial killer changed his mind at the last minute. That it picked her up, for prostitution. And he was going to go, and they were going to do their thing. And he made a wrong turn, made a right instead of a left. She knew what was up, and he decided not to, and left her there, beat her up and left her there, I think, and drove off. Okay? Found out later that he was the one that killed her friend. Something on those lines. Please tell me that this stuff isn't real. Please tell me that these documentaries are just made up to coincide with the rated R movies that we watch every day on TV. Please tell me this is not true. You would be better proving that this isn't true than you would argue with me about the evidence for God. Okay? Please tell me that what I'm hearing about NYC. I was just in NYC back in 21, right before I got mugged. You know that. People that watch my channel know all about that. I had just come back from NYC, Allentown, Harrisburg, Philadelphia. I did a tour in New Jersey. And I didn't go all the way into, I only went downtown New York. I didn't, even though all the bus stations are in the city, they're in the inner city, they're in the apple, the city. When you go in there, like, when we went to Harrisburg, it was in the city of Harrisburg. When we went to Philadelphia, the bus stopped downtown Philadelphia. Pittsburgh, Allentown, Now the bus station was right outside of downtown Allentown. There's no room in downtown Allentown for the bus. So the bus was, a couple miles up the street and around the corner. It was a small little bus station too. A lot of buses, but a very small place. Well, not even a lot of buses. There was probably about parking spaces there for about 5 to 10 buses. And probably less than 10, if I remember correctly. And the seating inside was like, something out of a short story. Okay, it was a little short country story, but I did that tour, and I went to NYC, and here in broad daylight, while everybody was having fun and everybody was amused by what they saw, I met RoboCop, New York's RoboCop, New York's Batman character. RoboCop in New York, if that's not Jean-Claude Van Damme, please tell me who that is. He looks like Jean-Claude Van Damme. I mean, seriously, he took his... No, was it RoboCop or was it Batman that looked like Jean-Claude Van Damme? I forget. It had to be Batman. It was Batman. Because RoboCop, keeps his head covered. Batman, he has some hickeys on. And he was standing there talking to somebody. He was taking a break. And, he's taking a break in his costume. He doesn't have time, as hot as it is out there. He doesn't have time to take his costume off. But he's chatting with somebody because he's on his break. And I come over and I just want to take pictures. And he looked at me like, "You want a picture?" And he jumped. He came at me just like Batman. He just flew into me. He's like, "Go ahead, take a picture." Go ahead, take a picture. He was acting crazy. Now I got it on in my photos if you ever want to see it. But and then he went back to, then when he got done taking the picture, he reached down and grabbed his French fries. I was like, oh snap, he's on a break. I didn't know he was on the break. I thought he was chatting with a fan. No, he's talking to one of his co-workers who also has a costume, or he's doing something downtown. He was totally in just bummy clothes, but he was a co-worker, obviously. And they're chatting, and I realized actually the guy ran a food booth. And so I realized when I came back around the corner later, Batman went back to, doing a show, and this guy went over to his food booth. I realized that he was the manager of that food booth. He had to go over there and relieve his people for lunch, but it was interesting. And but I saw the homeless on the street in private alleyways. I saw, in this corner and that corner. I took a small walk, and just in that little tiny walk. Now, I'll tell you one thing. Times Square, and that's where I was at. Times Square is beautiful. Here in Pittsburgh, you see some homeless dude on the street, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. sitting there on the corner, you know. But there you walk past a homeless dude, and it's like you just walk right past him like you didn't even see him, because the beauty of all the lights, even in broad daylight, the beauty of all the lights and all the people walking and everybody, like there's so many people. Now they're telling me that there was more back in 1979 in Times Square. Like you couldn't breathe and walk at the same time. You had to actually go inside a building and go to the office, or go in an alleyway and find a private. You know, I mean, you were just jam packed like sardines in a can. Said the video, and showed the video. Yeah, I don't see people walking through Times Square like that today. Where you can't drop a coin. You couldn't drop your head without it getting lost back in 1979. Okay, like if your head fell off, forget looking for it. Okay, it's too small to find it. That's how jam packed it was, you know. But also seeing, you know, the homeless, and you know, God bless America for ever trying to be moral. I mean, you're not going to see this photo that I see here. I mean, if you go past the same place today, I don't think it's called the Globe anymore. I don't think I'm pretty sure they changed it since then. And it says, you know, you can see I was able to capture it. Netflix is very good at not letting me capture any of their stuff. So what I do is I take screenshots of it, and then you know, they're very, very, very anal about you collecting anything that they might have on Netflix. Like some of the stuff that they got on Netflix is on YouTube too. You can see that same documentary on YouTube, but you know, Netflix, they want to trip, you know. But nevertheless, the point is that what I want to say to you, sex, the reason why I don't practice fornication, and the reason why I don't see God has a way of cleaning up his own creation. You can either dirty his creation, or you can keep it clean. The way we keep sex clean is by being married to one man being married to one woman biologically. Okay? And that's it. Now, sure. Wait, let's stop. Listen. I understand your feelings if you get caught up. And that's what it is. You got caught up. You got caught up into the whole trans thing. The whole gay thing. The whole sex trafficking thing, and you know, you done prostitution so well, and there's this fine, gorgeously beautiful babe on the video. This one right here, where they asked her, do you enjoy what you're doing? She was gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. She says, yeah, it pays the bills. Yeah, it pays the bills. You know. Please prove to me that every word is true from what people say. Please prove to me that people never look at you with a straight face and lie. And please prove to me that people won't do anything to make money. Just about anything. Especially if the money is decent. And please tell me, please prove to me that people are not controlled by what they suffer. If you make somebody suffer being told what to do all his life and having to suck up to somebody else, he'll grow up thinking he's a slave for the rest of his life, right? If you give somebody the option of being protected from her crazy serial killing boyfriend by letting another man just as crazy as him pimp her, which is she going to choose? Is she going to say no to being pimped? Being the cops cannot track down and stop her killing ex-boyfriend? Please tell me that there isn't a flip side to everything negative. Please prove to me that there's not a flip side to everything negative, even when it's called positive. I gotta check on something. 1 second. I'm not really good at hearing water run in my house when the fans, the way my ears work, especially when I take my hearing aids out. I don't know the difference between water running and my fans running. It all sounds the same to me. I just flooded out my bathroom for the, fourth time the other day, and I didn't even know that sink. I left the sink running while I was changing clothes, and I didn't even realize I left the sink running, and I didn't realize it could fill up because my sink doesn't fill up, the stopper doesn't work, and I didn't realize that I even had touched the stopper, okay? So all this time, it hasn't filled up, but then I forgot that the sink was clogged for a while. I had to Drano it out, and so even with a hole somewhere in the stopper button, it was able to fill up in those few minutes while I was getting dressed, and I didn't hear it until it started dripping on the floor, and then some started splashing, and I'm like, what? And I didn't hear it until I got close to it because I was on my way back. Thank God I was coming back. Thank God I didn't just get dressed and go out to the car. I always check my restrooms and check my kitchen before, I leave. And when I went to check it, I almost had to go swimming, okay, to get in there, okay? It was water everywhere, and my bathroom ain't that big, okay? But that's why I'm real anal. I shouldn't say that. You use the word anal. That's somebody else's term. I'm real strict right now. I'm real scared right now about doing anything like away from my bathroom or my kitchen where I can keep an eye on them, because I have a habit of not hearing, even with the hearing aids in my ear sometimes. The fan, if you've never been hard of hearing, try it sometimes. Like, the fan and the water sound the same to me. Now, if I got my fans off and I hear something going, I'm like, what's running? Oh, snap! The water's running. I run in there and save the day, But with the fans on, Superman didn't get here, okay? It didn't happen. He's late. He didn't show up. Now we're in a flood, okay? But anyway, getting back to this. Crime and violence are what led me to the Lord, being, studying this. Because, okay, you and your wife go somewhere and your wife gets sexually assaulted. Or let's say You know, usually when your wife gets sexually assaulted, forget that stuff you see on TV. Usually, if your wife gets sexually assaulted, okay, you weren't there. Okay, no matter who you were. But let's say your wife gets sexually assaulted, and and it was just a few minutes ago, and she knows exactly who the guy is that did it. It's your friend. You gonna tell me a Christian man ain't gonna go after his friend and try to cut his balls off? I can't say I wouldn't. Let's say you take your wife to, you don't even go to parties. You take your wife to over to neighbor's house. You didn't want to go, but your wife said, let's go. You don't really want to get into your new neighbor, so let's get over there and to the new neighbor's house anyway, even though you don't want to go. And you get over there, and they start insinuating wife swapping. You're already pissed. Like, what? Who does that? Okay. But then, because the guy couldn't get you to agree to do the wife swap thing, get you to agree, he figured he would go after your wife on the side, and he's in the kitchen while your wife is supposed to be in there helping his wife. Somehow she walks out and leaves your wife in there with her husband, and her husband is, trying to arouse your wife, and your wife trying to pull away from him, and he's got his hands everywhere, trying to get her to reconsider. Did you just commit your first murder? Or did you just leave like a good old, atheist? You just walked out. Like a good old Christian. You just walked out of there. And I'm going to try to forget that I saw what I saw. Now, that's how crime and sin leads to crime. Because this man was determined to make wife swapping a reality in his community and in between any couple. He was determined to make wife swapping a reality. Sin. It led to crime, where he would actually sexually assault another man's wife. Where it led to violence, where he's going to need violence to protect himself from the angry husband who's going to try to cut his nuts off. Or his hands off for touching his wife like that. And then you have, to mix with that, you have what? You have despair. You have, resentment. Okay? Amongst us, because people get away with crimes. And you can't find them. And if you do find them, you'll go to jail. So who's going to be with your wife then? Your wife has to live with the fact that she was raped or sexually assaulted for the rest of her life. That some man, without her permission, put his hands on her like that. So we got that going on. Now, a woman who's used to men putting their hands on her and she can't do anything about it. Maybe she comes from a place. Maybe she was human trafficked. Maybe she came from a boyfriend that was pimping her. But a woman who is used to men putting their hands on her without her permission, and she feels that she's locked in, she can't do anything about it. Okay? Do you think she would have problems being a prostitute later? And I also heard in this video, the one before this, that I heard in the video before this one that I don't forgot. I left my head. That a lot of the women, just like in the porn industry, and back in the 1970s, so the idea that all porn comes out of California that's not true. New York has just as much money and claws invested into the porn industry, according to these two documentaries. Well, they're all one documentaries, basically one and two actually. New York was big on the porn industry before California was big on the porn industry. Because the porn industry in New York was live back in the 1970s. By 1979, that glory hole thing, having sex on stage, and all that kind of stuff, that started in the 1970s in NYC. And people were flowing from all over the place, coming to NYC to be a part of this. It just goes to show you how many people need Jesus. When people actually flow into a crazy place where crime, serial killing is just as popular as the sex trade. But people are flowing still. No fear. They flow into New York City to be a part of this. To take a peek. To get their whistle wet, to have an orgasm for a change. I didn't know that there were trans women. I knew there were women. I knew that there were men who cross-dressed back in the 70s. I didn't know that there was trans. So a lot of the trans traffic started in NYC. This is why NYC is still the most popular state in America today. Everybody knows NYC. I don't care how far up the hillbilly west you can go. Everybody knows NYC. Why? Because a lot of their fathers and their mothers and their granddaddies and their grandmamas flowed to NYC back in the 70s. They did this stuff. They sold their body for a day to see what it was like. They went to, your grandpa went to the glory hole and wondered, was hoping it wasn't a dude that was going down on him at the glory hole. But once you stick it in there, you don't get to choose. And people were paying big cash for this. And the only moral, once you got in, the only moral is when you could touch the women and when you couldn't. That was the only moral. Other than that, anything goes. Oh, and you can't abuse your woman at the sex scene, at the sex shop, at the sex theater, like this one right here. You can't abuse your woman. Sex everywhere. You couldn't abuse your woman inside. But once you took your woman outside, okay, or the woman let you take her back to her apartment, that's no longer their problem. That's a problem for you and the police. Now it's a police issue now. But as long as you're inside, we're allowed to make the rules, just like I make the rules in my own house. Just like you make the rules on your own property and house. They made the rules inside. But once you left, it wasn't their problem no more. No matter how much they promised you protection, it was not their problem anymore. Okay? Not their problem anymore. Not their problem anymore. Uh, Also, in closing, um, we went from sex, we went from sex outside of marriage to to violence, which includes rape. Because see, in the sick mind of a rapist, you're married to a woman, and if she cheats on you, you might slap her. But as a rapist, if you like her and she doesn't give you what you want, you'll take it by force in the most violent way. Let me say that again. In the mind of a rapist, if he likes you physically, or he has some sexual desire or some emotion of some sort towards you, it's not always sex. Sex is just what's used to punish you. But if he has any emotion towards you at all, and you don't have those same feelings towards him, and you show him that, he will brutally rape you. Not because he's just a horny dog like that. Men rape women because men know that their bodies, their beautiful bodies that they flaunt in front of men every day, and the beauty of being a woman is you can't touch it. You can only drool, you can only slobber, but you can't touch it. You want it, but you can't have it. My problem is, why would you present this around my wife? Why would you present this between me, my wife, and my daughters? Why would you allow my daughters to be encouraged to be a slut like you? If I'm happy, having a good time with my wife, why would you come over and talk to me dressed like that? You don't work there. Just to piss off my wife. And I've seen women do it, even my previous marriage. People have done it. There were women at work who did not like my wife. And one day I openly spoke because this one fat, ugly white lady, excuse my French, who looked like Flo, Flo on Fat, okay, from Alice, from the TV show Alice, okay. This woman thought it was all cute. She thought it was all cute. And one day she said to me, "Oh, she can't get enough. Oh, she's really into you." And I said out loud, I said, what did I say? I said, I know that you all don't like my wife. And she gets on my nerves too. But I have no intention on doing anything behind her back. Okay? That's what I said. And that's when they went from flirting with me to getting mad at me and trying to treat me like the little guy. Yeah, I am a little guy, so knock yourself out. But they went back to treat me like the little LG. Okay? But I was the original LG. Okay? When I pulled that move. I says, I know y'all don't like my wife. Y'all don't get along with her. But I don't do anything behind her back. We have no secrets. Okay? But this woman was coming at me hard, and everybody knew it, man. And it got so bad that the guys at work like, "You gonna hit that or what?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! What are you doing?" You know. And she was tight. She was had tight little built. You know, I mean, my wife was voluptuous. Still is, you know. My ex-wife. She was voluptuous. But this girl was tight. I mean, her and my wife was around the same age back then, but she was tight. You know, when I say tight, I mean tight. Like, she was built nice in all the right places. She had meat in all the right places. You know how it is. And she was white, and she was cute. She was there's since I've recently turned my affection and attraction to Asian women, there's still some white women out there that are like, okay, Asian ladies, stand over there by the wall. I need to talk to her. I need to talk to this lady. Okay. Because there are some white women out there that they're just beautiful. And, in my opinion. And, if they look like anything else, if they look Asian or if they look black or they look like anything other than a white girl, they wouldn't look right. That right there is the heart of being a white woman, right there. If all white women look like her, there wouldn't be no feminism, okay? Like, that's a doll right there. That is worthy of adoration, okay? That is worthy of every man fighting over her about, you know. And found out later that she was doing this. And so if I had a sin with her, yeah, I said sin. If I had sin with her, if I had committed adultery with her, I'd have been cheating on two people. I'd have been cheating on her, on my wife, and I'd have been cheating on her husband. She'd have been cheating on her husband. We both would have been, it'd have been a 4-person circus. Found out later, this girl actually had a boyfriend. Okay? Now, in closing, you cannot tell me that the Bible is not it. The Bible is not the original first gangster that ever lived. The Bible is the original gangster. The Bible is the original, soprano. I mean, he is God Almighty in the way he wrote the Bible. Or should I say the way he had his people write the Bible. Is really gangster. And really, it's gangster, but it's love. It's love, but it's power and strength. It's power and strength and aggressive. But yes, it's humble and meek. Okay? It's all there. The powerful and aggressive, the rich, as well as the poor, the weak, the coward. Everybody is in there. Thousands, though. Thousands and millions, billions, though. Caught up in the sex trade, between the sex trade, sex trafficking, victims of the sex trade and the sex trafficking, married men bound by pornography, married men, this fetish for underage girls. And now today, just like back then, even more so today, we have the trans trade, where a lot of men will cheat on their wives with trans women, which lets you know that a man is not attracted to a woman's vagina when it's clothed with clothing. A man, a woman could be beautiful, on the outside, and she could smell good with her perfume and her hair and all that kind of stuff. It's all beautiful, but a woman there's a one here that I didn't record. I just realized that. But a woman could be beautiful in everything, with her hair and how her clothes fit her. But we understand that clothes make a woman more sexy than, women are more sexier in their clothes depending on how they wear their clothes. That's the trick, how they wear their clothes. Than they are butt naked. Like, there's a lot of skinny girls out there that if they take their clothes off, they're as skinny as a toothpick. And it's like watching your skinny wife walk around the house don't mean nothing until she put that lingerie on. Then when she put that lingerie on, now she looks like she got something there that really ain't there because, But the illusion is what drives a man to not only have sex with a woman, but really, really have, lovemaking, somewhere between lovemaking to raunchy, hardcore sex with a woman, is by the things that she wears. Now, translate that into transgenderism. I always say this. These queers that are good at it, they're good at acting like women. They're good at wearing women's clothes. They're good at wearing women's hair and makeup and all the above. They're good at it. They have a talent. They have a gift. It's almost a gift. They're good at it. They're very artistic at it. These women, these men, I should say, are the ones that a lot of men will cheat with in this decade and the next one coming up. At the end of this decade and the ending of this decade and the next one coming, it's already being done. A lot of celebrities are sleeping with trans women. A lot of big name people are marrying trans women. And if you want to marry a trans woman and you want to keep the media out of your business, they have the power in that community to help you with that. But if you lay down with a trans woman and walk away and act like it didn't happen, there's nothing that's going to, And if you were that close to a trans woman and you told that trans woman the truth, you'll get canceled. You might even lose your job. You might lose your career. Your CDs will be canceled. Your book will be canceled. You'll be boycotted everywhere. Because why? You told a trans woman the truth. But what's the difference between violence and rape, which is violence? What's the difference between that and blackmailing someone or threatening someone to get your way, to make them do things that they don't want to do, that they don't want to participate in? Is that not also rape? If a man get another man to participate in something, it could be financial, it could be a business deal, but he don't want to give that up to you. He don't want you to be his boss. He don't want you dominating him like that. He don't want to share. You get my drift? He don't want to share his business with you. But you forced him by blackmail. And we've seen movies where a man goes into a man's life and he blackmails his way and hinders his way, and he finds a secret that's supposed to be hidden and uses that secret to get in there against the man. And he couldn't just get in there and make himself a partner when they don't want him in there as a partner. But it didn't stop there. He went after the man's family. He went after the man's wife. He wanted the man's wife too. What about that movie with Tyler Perry? Tyler Perry? Yeah, Tyler Perry. About a black woman, something about a black woman, and these women launched onto this hot shot, good looking rich man. He was a billionaire. They latched onto him, and it got to the point where even the mother was willing to lie down with the man. Now, in the moral of the story, because it's a Tyler Perry movie, even though he was the devil, he said no. He's not going to sleep with the mother so that the mother doesn't have to be rich through her daughter. But the mother wanted to be rich through her daughter, so she wanted to make sure that it stayed good between him and her daughter. She was willing to break whatever strings, break whatever rules to keep this man, filling up her daughter with cash because that made her a rich mama. Okay? See, the problem with me is if I ever win the lottery, you didn't help me win it, which I don't really gamble, but I do scratch tickets every now and then, especially if I get them for free. If I ever win, you weren't there to help me win. So why do I owe you? Now, if I'm raising kids, small children, I can understand, and if I got a wife, not a girlfriend, a wife, I can understand me sharing that money with my family. But cousins, brothers and sisters and all like that, you know what I mean? Like, what did I watch last night? I watched the George Foreman movie. Now, I can understand George Foreman taking care of 3 wives. I think he got married 3 times. And all the children that were his. There was no way he was going to be a star, and because everybody would have been on TV and making even more money if he had tried to walk away. My personal opinion is the only people I owe money to, okay, when I make money, is the people that I'm already taking care of. My wife and my kids. Okay? It's unfair to me that, now if I have a kid by my previous wife or previous girlfriend, I'm telling that kid I love you, I'll do anything for you or whatever. Yeah, I win the lottery, I gotta, what's this have to do with the thing? What's this have to do with the video? The point is, we have to look at how the world is done and separate God's love and God's truth from what we're forced to do every day. And when you're forced to do it, don't smile about it and act like, oh, well, yeah, like this woman on here. Oh, well, yeah, it pays the bills, yeah. You're lying. You know that's not true. You know that if you could be doing something else, if you had respect for yourself to do something else, you would. But you don't have respect for yourself. But you want your pimp to have respect for you. You don't have respect for yourself, and you got to get picked up. But you want the guy to pick you up to have respect for you. A guy has to pay you money for sex. Why? Because you ain't interested in him and he ain't interested in you. It's just business. But prostitution is illegal. But you want laws within prostitution. Sweetheart, there really is none. because it's illegal. You're doing a crime. Porn stars getting raped and killed, drug overdosing, committing suicide. And the number one thing we do in the world, what is the biggest sin we do in the world? Fornication. What is fornication? Like you don't know, fornication is any sex outside of marriage between a biological male and a biological woman in a holy matrimony. Any sex outside of that is sin, and it is wrong in the eyes of God. Okay? So it starts off with masturbation and pornography, all the way to gayism and everything in between. And we want to tell ourselves today that, see, this is the difference between the 1979 and today. This is the difference, and I promise you I'm closing. Back in 1979, gay sex and the whole trans thing and all like that was something, in short, there were people that were gay. Come on, D-Roy. There were people that were gay that stayed home. They didn't go down to the red light district. They didn't go down to the gay bars. They didn't, they were just under this impression that in God's holy earth, if there is a such thing, that some gay dude is going to come out of the woodwork and look in his eyes and say, oh, I'm in love. I got a friend who did that. He was across the street. I tell you about him all the time. He's across the street. And he's over there minding his own business. He wasn't out there doing that stuff. He was just Eric. And I'd go over there and bring him food every day. When I went to the store, he'd ask me to pick him something up. Because he didn't like appearing in public. Because there were people that wanted to hurt him in public. Okay? There were people that wanted to hurt him in public. Okay? And there were people that would say things to him in public, and he wasn't afraid of them. He was afraid that he would hurt some, and then he couldn't beat the others. But, he was a friend of the family. He's like a cousin to me. And I would go over there and spend some time with him, bring him something to drink or something to eat, because he was very poor. His family was very poor, and he was always asking for something, so I would bring him something. But he didn't go out to the district until later. He got tired of having an estranged relationship with mom. He got tired of being all alone. Even his other gay siblings, his two brothers, I think he had two brothers, they were both gay. They didn't want to have nothing to do with him. Okay, 3 gay people that don't want to have nothing to do with each other. They don't talk to each other. They don't speak to each other. They just gay. Okay. It was later that he went from being gay privately, like it's supposed to be, that's the way it's supposed to be, to going out publicly and trying to meet guys, to prostituting himself for guys. That worked. Prostituting himself for guys, to cross-dressing. It was the cross-dressing that got him killed. He dressed up like a woman, and I guess this dummy thought he was going to bed with the ugliest black woman he ever seen. And he was willing to do it. And when he found out that the ugliest black woman he ever seen looked down below like the ugliest black woman he ever seen, okay, he stabbed him to death. Sexual desires that are wrong, leading to crime, leading to violence, leading to death. There you have it right there. When people are unhappy, they're willing to cross the line. When people cross the line, they're willing to become numb at crossing the line. And when they begin to cross the line, where does it end? Where does it stop? This right here on my screen is why I'm a born again Christian. Because this doesn't stop at sex, constant sex. If it stopped at sex, constant sex, okay, I would look at my pastor and I would say, well, is it really that bad? You know, like if you're not married, to just have sex. Like men want sex, women want sex. Come on, Pastor Carmen. Come on, Pastor Spencer. Like, what's the big deal? People just want sex. What's wrong with having sex? Okay? What's so bad about it? Why am I hating on sex so much? Because like in these two documentaries, they spoke my mind. And I didn't know. I was born in 1966. I didn't know this was going on in New York in 1979. I wanted to go to New York. Matter of fact, I did go to New York back in 1982, I believe it was. My aunt lived out there. I went to Brooklyn. We rode through Times Square and the rest of the city. We went to Queens. We went to the Bronx. We went to all them places, and I went to the Bronx. Back when I was in Job Corps, I used to go to the Bronx every time the Yankees were playing. We went to the Bronx. Okay, and I love to go to the Bronx, and I love the vintageness of New York. Like when you walked into New York, you knew that it was like visiting grandma. You know what I'm saying? Because this is like, New York has never really renewed everything. Times Square is a lot new because of all the electricity and electronics and science that they've added to it. But New York is filled with old bridges and old buildings and you name it. And when we used to go to see the Yankees, that stadium was old. Okay, especially the outside of it. You could see where they repaired the inside of it because of wear and tear over the year, but the outside of it and all the graffiti outside and all stuff, it was all old. Okay, and we'd go in there and New York is New York. And as much crime is going on in New York right now as I speak, with that knucklehead puppet that's in office, everything that's going on around the world, I'm afraid to leave. I'm afraid to leave Pittsburgh, but I'm leaving because Pittsburgh is bad now, so I got to move on. But I'm afraid to go anywhere. I was telling somebody just in an Uber the other day. I did an Uber trip the other day, and I told this woman, I says, I always wanted to go to California. So help me. I always wanted to go back to New York. So help me. I always wanted to go visit, all these places. That people are talking about, Boston, Las Vegas. I'm hearing new things about Las Vegas now. Las Vegas used to be the countryside of Los Angeles. Well, not Los Angeles, but California. Always, it used to be like where a lot of Californians went to be more country, to be out in the mountains and away from all the riffraff. Now they got mass shootings in Las Vegas. In other parts of Nevada, the world is getting crazy, and as the world is getting crazy, we keep telling ourselves that what's wrong with getting your whistle wet? What's wrong with busting a nut? What's wrong with D-Roy? What are you on about, D-Roy? What's wrong with busting a nut? What's wrong with getting your whistle wet? If I meet a girl and she want to get rough and do something crazy, what's wrong with that, D-Roy? What's wrong with it? What me and a girl do is our business. It is your business. But God is always watching you. And God is always opinionated about what you're doing. So is the devil. And I believe in the devil. I believe in the devil more than I believe in God. Hate to tell you. When atheists say, well, we don't believe that God exists, I say, what about the devil? What about the devil? Mr. Crouch, or however you pronounce his name in. What about the devil? How did you end up in a sex scandal? Okay, Mr. Crouch. Huh? What about the devil? Does he exist? Look around you. What is that, subjective morality when all them kids went into NYC and raided the place? I feel like getting in my car right now and driving down NYC to see how long it's going to take them to clean all this up. They might clean it up overnight because NYC got it like that. This ain't the first time they tore up the streets of NYC. And them some big streets. I know, because trying to go to the bathroom while you driving through Times Square, okay, you either better pull over and let somebody park your car for you, or you gonna pee on yourself. Just pull over anywhere and say, park my car for me. I'll pay for 1 or 2 nights. Just park my car for me. You gonna pee on yourself. You ain't getting through traffic. We got rush hour traffic out here in Pennsylvania. NYC, when does rush hour stop? I no wonder there's so much crime in NYC back in 1979. You're telling me that they had more people back then than they do now? Flowing, and you know, COVID kind of like distances out a little bit, because COVID, everybody ain't all hunky-dory to jump in NYC, and you know, NYC had the biggest rating for the coronavirus. I know some of it was a lie because I went down to see it, because they was lying in 21. They said it was shut down. It wasn't shut down. I was there. I went on vacation in 21. They was telling you up here on these local news stations in Pittsburgh, NYC was still shut down because of the coronavirus. All you see is people riding bikes on the quiet streets. Man, I went down there. First thing I saw was Batman, RoboCop, some dude juggling bottles, okay, some dude rapping up on the big stage, okay. I was afraid. There's so many people, I couldn't tell the road from the sidewalk. And they got sidewalks over there that are for people, that they're about 2 streets long in Times Square. And I rolled up on one of them. And I'm wondering, why are these people just standing there instead of moving? Don't they see me trying to cross the street? Dude rolled down his window and said, yo, my man, that's not the street, bro. Back up and make a right. You're on the ramp, and that's not a street. That's actually a sidewalk. I know it looked like a street, bro, but I'm like, oh my God, this crazy place. But everything that we do today, that we make excuses for, turns from simple sin to crime and violence to death. Everything that we do. Adultery, fornication. Because why? One sin leads to bigger sins. There's been people who've gotten drunk. That's a sin to get drunk, says the Bible. Not a sin to have, a beer every now and then, but a strong drink, okay, that's a different story. And the Bible shows you that drunkenness is a sin. Some people drink because they just chilling with their family, out at a cookout or whatever. Hey, bring out the beers, mama. and they have a couple beers and that's enough. But how many people are in prison for drunk driving because they had to get drunk and they told themselves they could get in the car and handle their liquor and they killed somebody? How many people have gotten drunk and were taken advantage of, killed, raped, robbed? And how many people have gotten drunk and beat the snot out of somebody, not realizing what they do, woke up in a jail cell? Knowing that now they're just now finding out almost 24 hours later that they nearly killed somebody yesterday. And they're going to be there a while, according to the bruises and the permanent injuries on this other person. And all you did was have a little drink. All you did was go out and have a couple beers. You thought that was a couple beers, but once you got to 2, the third one was for just good measure. And then once you got to 3, you didn't know you was drinking a 4th one. You don't remember drinking the 4th beer. They say that pornography is like drugs. People get addicted to it. This is why I stopped long time ago. And I still get them images in my head. And I've watched some good porn films. A lot of people, porn is just porn. But to me, I can name you my favorite stars right now that have been doing porn for years and they're still doing porn today. They done been in porn so long. Today they doing granny porn. God bless those that are delivered from drugs into Jesus Christ. I love the George Foreman story, how he went from being angry and anger, if this is true. Now, they always exaggerate in the movies. But if he went from anger, and anger is what made him a great boxer, he found Jesus. And he gave up on boxing, and it was stupid because you don't need to give up on boxing to accept Jesus. And then he found out that the guy that was his best friend and his financial consultant, if this is true in the real story of George Foreman, but it is in the movie, he robbed George Foreman of everything that he thought he had in stocks and bonds. George Foreman thought he was rich, and the little bit of money he had in the bank was all he had. And it wasn't until he started opening up all these businesses and trying to monopolize, and do good for God, that he found out this guy had robbed him. So he went back into boxing to make fast cash so that he wouldn't end up in debt. And he was able to turn all the lights back on and keep his promises to his people and all like that. And he still knew the Lord. Okay? Him and his wife, I think it was his third wife, did it for God. Okay? It could have been 2 wives. But a lot of women. Okay? And why is that? Why is it always a lot of women? Why can't a dude that's, a celebrity? How do we get to the point where I'm closing. One thing I've never understood is, and I've seen a girl do it one day. And if you ask a lot of girls on the job, would you sleep with the number 1 Stiller celebrity? Like, would you sleep with the toppest guy in the Stillers if he had sex with you and paid off your car note? Would you sleep with him? Would you have sex with him for one night and get your car note paid off? And people have asked people crazy questions like this. And these women would blush. Okay, I know your answer. They would, I ain't telling you that. Okay, I know your answer. You're blushing. Why are you blushing? You think this is funny? And other celebrities. There's women who hate Donald Trump. But they said, oh yeah, I would sleep with Donald Trump. I would sleep with Donald Trump. Pay my rent for the rest of the time I'm here. Okay? You know? Pay my rent for the rest of the time I'm here. Yeah. I'll sleep with Donald Trump. Even though I'm not a Republican, I don't like Donald Trump. I hate the guy with all my heart. But I would sleep with him. I would. If he paid my rent for the rest of my life, yeah, I'll sleep with him. Now you look at that, you might say she's being sarcastic. How much you want to bet she would sleep with Donald Trump for less? She would sleep with Donald Trump for less. She's being sarcastic about her rent being paid for the rest of her life. What about when you move into a mansion? He still got to pay your rent? No, it's not going to happen, sweetheart. But you're being sarcastic. But what you're not saying is that, yeah, you would sleep with Trump for less. Way less. But it all ends up to what? Donald Trump was out there like every celebrity having a little bit of fun. Yeah, not as many as other people, but he had some prostitutes. Yeah, not as many as the others, but he did, he did shake hands with some wicked people. Now we're here, now that we done went from all that and everything he went through in between that, to over we're here of getting his mugshot taken at a local prison. Even the good guys are affected by sin leading to death. Sin leading to death. And the Bible says, I think it was Paul that said, there is sin leading to death. I don't pressure you to pray for someone like that. But if a man commits a sin that does not lead to death, pray for that person. So you wonder, why is all this suffering in the world happening and God is not doing a thing? Sin leading to death. We don't always, and all of us don't always pray for that, because you put yourself in that situation. But your kid is innocent, so I will pray for your kid. And your wife might be innocent, because she's just following along with you, so I might pray for your wife. But the situation that went on in NYC, you could pray all you want to. You think you're going to make all them sex traffickers go away? You think you're going to make all them young girls that are about to be beheaded and their body parts cut off in the name of some guy having a good time in bed with them? You think that you can pray for them and make them leave? They went all the way to NYC knowing that they were taking a chance, taking risk that they shouldn't be taking. Their mama was crying, their daddy was screaming, but they still went. Now, if Sodom and Gomorrah was to be burned up today like it was in the Bible days, before anybody said anything about God, before anybody said anything about what's right and what's wrong, who's gay and who's not gay, okay, they would have been like, well, according to the evidence, there was an explosion, and what caused the explosion was. Well, don't you think that back then that There were people back then that looked at Sodom and Gomorrah and they didn't give the credit to God. Maybe the people that wrote the Bible gave the credit to God, but the people that may have escaped Sodom and Gomorrah or had been living right next to Sodom and Gomorrah, they went there and they looked at the rubble. They said, somebody forgot to turn off the oven. Somebody didn't put out a fire. Somebody was smoking that ooh weed. Okay? They would make excuses for why all these people were destroyed. Sin does not make God kill you or even put you in hell. Your sins cause you to be destroyed. Your sins are bound to put you in hell. God doesn't just burn up people forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Relate the subject of hell with God's judgment. Read it again, Sam. It nowhere in the Bible does it say, and hell is God's judgment. Hell is your decision, sir, ma'am. It's your decision. Not God's judgment. Just like for these women to go to NYC and get their heads chopped off in the middle of a guy trying to have sex with two women. The one that was having the most sex was popular. They were able to describe who she was, even though they didn't have DNA back then. But Jane Doe, they never found out who she was. She could have been a Christian woman who just wanted to do something freaky for once in her life because she felt like an atheist at that moment. She felt like the church was always telling her what to do. She felt like she was being, like D-Roy Cruz at one time is like, he felt like, you know what I mean? He's in this box and he doesn't have any freedom. Until I went out there and got a taste of this bullcrap. Found out that the world is not my friend. In all 50 states. I went back to that box. I knocked on the door. Begging to get in. I am D-Roy Cruz. I am your life applications officer. Thank you for watching. Watch to the end. I know I was a blessing. You'll be blessed for watching this. God bless you.